Osmosis is proudly recorded on location by Fog Agency.
Welcome, fellow entrepreneurs, to Osmosis. And you know what this is about? It's a place where we're trying to simulate ideas from a place of low concentration to a place of high concentration. And really what it is about is creating a platform where entrepreneurs can talk to other entrepreneurs so we can better ourselves, our businesses, how we run our businesses, and how we like to think about what the future looks for us. And today, I'm really excited to have the one and only male stud. I mean, this guy's perfect. Male stud, model, ladies love him, and so does the balance sheet. Janez, how you doing?
I'm good, my brother. What an introduction.
Nobody's ever introduced you like that?
No. You didn't mention the shirt off, which was good.
Yeah, I thought too. Then I thought that might come across like I'm on the other side of the fence. I was
I'm trying to lose that, so it's good.
Your surname, Vermeiren.
Vermeiren, Belgian.
Oh, you're Belgian, are you?
Yeah, so I was born from two Belgian parents.
Right.
My dad being a crazy, free-thinking, free-spirited artist.
Right.
Who came here. He studied with a South African fellow in Belgium.
Right.
And Belgium is a hub for the arts and obviously culture and stuff like that. And then his friend said, listen here, there's some drastic changes that are happening in South Africa. This was near the end of apartheid. Let's go and revolutionize things. Let's go and cause some trouble down in South Africa. And he came down to South Africa where he met my mother, who had immigrated many years before after the Second World War.
From where did your mother immigrate?
From Belgium.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So
fortuitous. Two Belgians meet in SA, huh?
And then she found out that there was this artist from Belgium who was having his first solo exhibition in Cape Town. Intrigued, went over, met him, and that's where it all started.
Your father was a famous artist. What type of art did he practice?
Well, in the beginning, no one's famous. He was a struggling artist, young artist. He had great qualifications. He had studied all over Europe and he had really built a name for himself.
Right.
But when he arrived in South Africa, no one knew who he was.
Right.
He just had this crazy South African friend he had met at art school in Belgium.
Right.
And he moved in with him and he started the first kind of printmaking studio for black youth in the center of Cape Town. This was in the early 70s.
Wow.
And that didn't obviously go down well with the government at the time. So that was rapidly shut down. But because he was in the arts movement, he became very friendly with people like Breyten Breitenbach, who got exiled, Andre Brink, all the kind of Afrikaans creatives, writers, painters that were fighting against apartheid.
Right.
And a lot of them were eventually exiled. And and my dad built his name from there. He was one of the pioneers, I would say, of his time and his style. Abstract art on canvas, very famous for printmaking. So he brought a lot of those traditional European techniques he had learned overseas to South Africa, and that's why they always call him, he's a Belgium artist, but with a lot of South African influence.
Oh, I see. Having been exposed to art, I know it did for me, so I ask you the question because I'm interested. Did it affect how you look at life?
You know what it did for me is my dad has never worked a day in his life.
Wow.
He's just always enjoyed himself. He's followed his passion. My dad's obsessed with art. He's an intellectual. He reads and sleeps and thinks art. And all forms of art, from ceramic art to printmaking to oil on canvas, you name it, sculpture, my dad does it. So he really he lives his dream and he lives his passion. And that's what that instilled something very special in me, because I realized one day when I have to fend for myself and look after myself, I'd also like to do something that I like doing and that I'm proud of and that I'm passionate about. So my dad wasn't the best businessman, by no means. He would, at one stage, I remember because his students always spoke so highly of him. Even today still, I bump into students and they're like, oh, your dad was the best lecturer we ever had, because he lectured at Cape Tech and at the University of Stellenbosch.
Wow.
And what they say is that he was just one of the most passionate human beings. He was always passionate about what he did.
Right.
And I think that if you're passionate about what you do, you're going to succeed. You don't want to be stuck in a job that you don't like.
I wonder, is that your approach in business today? I've got to be passionate about what I'm doing, I've got to love what I'm doing, and it's got to feel like it's not natural, like I'm not working here.
Exactly. I've got to enjoy it. Also, I don't know if it's my star sign or whatever, but I get bored very quickly. So I need to be in a job that's constantly changing. I can't sit behind a desk and do the same thing day after day after
What
day
star
after
sign
day.
are you?
I'm a Gemini.
You're definitely...
So for me, if it gets boring, I want to move on and do something else.
Right.
But yeah, whatever I do, you've got to be passionate about it. You have to love what you do. You don't necessarily have to have studied it. I mean, I went overseas to Belgium and I studied building construction design, and I did a year of archaeology because I didn't know what to do when I left school. So it was kind of a phase of finding yourself. And then when I came back to South Africa, I realized, you know what, I'm very passionate about architecture. I still am. But I became a male model. Yeah, and I entered the modeling world, and it was easy money. And I was having the time of my life. I was 24 years old, shooting massive TV commercials. I think the first TV commercial I ever did was a worldwide Fanta commercial where I made 750,000 Rand. This was in 2004, of one commercial. Then the following year, I booked another one for 1.1 million Rand, which was for a German soap that also went worldwide. I made a lot of money very quickly. And luckily, I had parents that said to me, listen, you've got all this money, invest it. So I was quite privileged to have parents that basically, they let me be myself, and they were very open-minded and free-spirited. But when I did have big decisions to make, they would always guide me in the right direction.
Sure.
So I invested in property, and I started buying and renovating flats because I had a background in architecture.
Right.
And that was in a time when the property market in Cape Town was booming. So I was buying up old flats, renovating them, selling them. But my foot in the door was this easy money I'd made from modeling.
I see, the one was feeding the other.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And then I started, then I had bad luck with an agency I joined. It was the biggest agency in South Africa, Store Models. It was actually owned by Richard Branson at a stage.
Wow.
And they had built this mega agency with 400 staff and hundreds of cars and fancy offices in Joburg and in Cape Town. And when the kind of fashion industry started to implode a bit, and the advancement of new cameras and film disappeared, obviously, the industry started shrinking. And
Wait, did you just use the word film?
Yeah.
How far back are we going now?
Yeah, so when I started out, we used to shoot on film. Nothing was digital.
Unbelievable.
So then they'd have to go and print it, and it was a real art to shoot on film. It was actually a beautiful process. But then when film kind of got pushed down by digital, the industry kind of collapsed. And I lost a lot of money with the agency. They went bankrupt, and I lost about R1 million at the time that was sitting with them, that was due to me. And at that stage, I thought, you know what, I've learned so much. I've been in this industry for 4 years now. I know every side of it. I said, I'm going to start my own modeling agency, and I'm going to do things differently. A boutique agency that has only the best of the best models, that has low overheads, and that doesn't carry any dead weight. And today, I mean, it's 10 years later, and the agency is still running perfectly.
It's a lesson for all entrepreneurs, isn't it?
Yeah.
Low overheads don't carry dead weight.
Yeah,
Run me through why those two things specifically were important. Why low overheads
because
and why
I'd
not
seen
carry
it,
dead
I'd
weight?
learned it from the other agency. I was like, they went way too big. They invested in the ridiculous offices.
What was that? Was that about image and
It
bravado?
was because it's the modeling industry. It's all about image. It's all about the image you put out. And they thought if you put out this image of having the best offices and the latest Mac computers, and they wasted money on model parties every week, that would attract the best models to come to you. And they just dug a grave for themselves. So I thought, you know what, let's go more exclusive on this, and let's earmark who are the best models that are making the most money. Let's try and get those models on our side. Let's make sure we don't have any dead weight. Obviously, later on, once you've got money in the kitty, you can start developing models.
That's right.
Because you need to always develop models so that you can make money. But in the beginning, I thought I need 20 strong models that all make at least 1 to 1.5 million Rand a year, and then I'll keep my overheads as small as possible, and I don't have to employ as many staff because it's only 20 people to look after. So the business model really worked. We were making money from the day one, which rarely happens, and we paid back all our loans within a year, which also never really happens. It takes sometimes up to 4 to 5 years to repay your initial investment in the business. So so that was a good move. And
how did you convince the initial set of agents to join you?
Well, it was more the talent, the models. So I had done very well in my career, and also I'd done well because I'd invested my money. So everyone saw me as a very successful model, not because I was the best looking, because I was just a guy next door. I really wasn't. I wasn't like the international level that could go walk the catwalks of Milan and New York. I was just the guy that could act and that booked a lot of TV commercials.
Right.
And then on top of that, I mean, I shot over 500 TV commercials in 5 years, which is a lot. And I put all the money away, and I built this kind of property empire that everyone knew about. So when they found out that I was starting my agency, they knew that I had some business sense. I'd obviously approached them and explained to them what we were doing, and they liked me, and I managed to get 20 really good models to join my agency. And then when they started working, nothing spreads like word of mouth, you know. They started working, and the agency was working, and it just attracted more people to want to join. And we had to be very selective because I didn't want everyone joining.
100%.
I only wanted the best of the best.
100%. Was it important to you that they had the same values you did? This talent you were bringing in?
Yeah, you know, they were all friends. So at the end of the day, you don't want to disappoint the people that you've known for the past 4 years.
True
so they
story.
were all friends, and they were all taking a big risk by coming with me. New agency, no real experience in running an agency. But what I did do is I made sure that I employed the best people to work with me. So the 2 bookers that started with me had been in the industry for 25 years. I'd headhunted them from the top agencies.
This is fascinating.
So immediately I brought in the best people. They could see that I was running the agency with small overheads, and they could also see that for the first time they were getting exclusive treatment. Where at an agency where there's 1,000 people, you get maybe 1 phone call a day. Now you've got a booker that's literally calling you after every casting and prepping you before every casting. So the attention to detail was there.
I listened to it's fascinating for me, your story, because I sort of came through a similar path in public speaking. The biggest problem I had was that all the agencies ran what I call like telephone directories. So this idea that the more speakers you have, the more you'll book. And then, of course, what happens is those of us that were investing in ourselves, invariably, I don't want to be in a pile with 200 other people and maybe get attention once in a while. I want to feel like someone is working my case.
100%.
Right? Like somebody actually cares. But also, more importantly, like somebody's looking at me as an individual, not as a number. So it's interesting because my understanding then was, first when we met, I always thought you were sort of the talent that transitioned to business. You were never. You were always a business person that understood that your talent was your business, but you were always a business person.
Yeah. So because my dad was an independent artist and he never worked for anyone and he never really had a boss. And it's interesting because this is where, and one of my friends actually explained this to me, Siv Ngesi said to me.
Yeah. Siv's a great guy.
Yeah, he says, what privilege actually is what you are going through in your career because your parents taught you about entrepreneurship. That's something I was never taught. My parents always worked for someone and they struggled to make ends meet.
He's right.
So the idea of being an entrepreneur was never instilled in me.
Right.
Yes, you may not have been the most spoiled kid or whatever, and you didn't go to the most prestigious private school, but what your parents did teach you is that you have the ability to start your own business and succeed in life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I always had, is I knew my dad had always looked after himself and I wanted the same type of lifestyle. So I never wanted to really work for someone. What I did do is I made sure that once I was because when you work for a modeling agency, you're an independent contractor. You don't actually belong to them. But what I did do is I made sure that I understood every facet of the business. Just because I was inquisitive and maybe deep down in my head, I was hoping that one day I'd be able to start my own agency. And that's exactly what I did. Same with presenting. Then when that knocked on the door, I said, sure, but the bigger picture was always, I like this production company thing. I want to figure out how does a production company work, and maybe one day once I've learned everything and I've figured everything out, I can break away and open up my own production company.
Before this interview started, we were having a conversation about aviation industry. And the conversation was based on research and facts, and you were presenting a perspective which was very interesting, but also you'd thought through some of the ideas that were presented, which to me says you are, and I wonder if you are, that's why I asked the question, naturally curious. Like if there's a conversation on the table about how to make cake, you'll go, so how does this thing work?
I am the most curious person in the room. So if I hear something interesting or someone's talking about something I don't know, I want to know immediately. So I'm a bit like a sponge. I like to pick up things. My dad's exactly the same.
Right.
So my father is, and he's probably my biggest inspiration. You cannot sit around a dinner table with my father and have a discussion that he can't enter, because he knows something about everything.
Right.
At home, we've got a library twice the size of this room, just with books and different topics, because he's researched and read so much. And now with the internet and stuff like that, he spends all day on his iPad researching things. So I'm a bit the same. I like to get involved in things. I like to learn new things every day.
So I'd
love to pick your brain for many days if I could.
So how many businesses have you got running now?
I've got the 2 businesses. I've got a production company, and I've got the modeling agency. I've also had some failed businesses.
Tell me. You know you opened a can of worms, right? So talking to entrepreneurs, this is the stuff they want to hear. Tell me about those.
My first business was a complete failure, and I'd put a lot of money into it.
What was it?
My first business was, before thinking of starting a modeling agency, I thought, you know what? All these models from all over the world are arriving in Cape Town, and they all got different diaries, but they don't know where the casting agencies are. They don't know where all the information is. So I thought, let's build a personal diary for the models that are coming into town and for the local models, because all models come from all over South Africa and the world to work in Cape Town. It really is like a fashion hub.
Right.
And they arrive from a plane. Many of them can't speak English, and they get sent to castings. So in there, I had all the modeling agencies, all the casting agencies, all the restaurants where they could eat at special discounts, whatever perks models could get. It was all in one directory, and all I asked for is for the modeling agencies to support it, so they could advertise, because it's going out to all models. They could have a one-pager and advertise their modeling agency in there, and that would basically cover the costs. The problem was, the modeling, the agency saw me as competition because I worked for the biggest agency who had obviously placed the biggest order. And because I worked for that agency, they wanted nothing to do with it.
Oh, I see.
So I ran that business at a massive loss. And then obviously that was shortly before technology came into play and everything was available on your phone.
Yeah.
So it was the wrong timing. And had I not been in the industry and just been an outsider coming in, it probably would have worked. But I learned my lesson. You take a risk, you win some, you lose some.
How much money did you burn?
500,000 rand. Yeah, because I went all out. Because
Half a bar.
Yeah, because I had a sales team. So I had 4 guys on scooters. I bought them all brand new scooters, and they would go around, obviously petrol costs, salary costs, all on me. They would go around trying to sell to the restaurants, for example. Do you want to advertise in here? To the spas, anything that's model related,
So I'm curious about this, because being an entrepreneur, I tend to take loss personally.
It's not fun. It's not fun.
Because in your head, you go through what you could have done with this money, right?
Yeah.
So first, two questions. First, when did you make the decision to go, it's not working? And then second question, how did you recover from the, I just failed?
Yeah, well, it stopped working when I realized that my business partner, who hadn't invested any money into the business, decided that he now had a different idea on how to do it, and he wanted to break away and do something completely different. And I was like, dude, but I've invested all the money in this, surely we're in this together. So the partnership fell apart. So it was me and a partner. And then afterwards, I realized that at a point as a businessman, you've got to realize either I put in another 500,000 rand and hope that I can fix things,
100%.
or I pull the plug and I just sit back, I take it on the chin and I try and recover. And I did that, thankfully, because it was hit and miss, It wasn't a calculated risk, and one has to take calculated risks. Having failed once, I could see that the appetite wasn't quite there to try it again. And I accepted I lost the 500,000 rand. What I used the next 500,000 rand for was investing in my own modeling agency.
Yes, business partner.
Yes.
What's your relationship like with him now?
We haven't spoken since the day.
I knew you'd say that.
I don't know where he is. I don't know what's happened to him. I do know that he did try to open up a new magazine, that he actually got the idea from a magazine that I'd brought with from Belgium,
right,
which was a great idea, but he had basically just copied the exact same format. And he didn't have the business skill to kind of implement everything, and that also failed. So he went from one failure to the next failure. Yeah, so I don't know what's happened to him.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll see this and give me a shout.
I have to ask this question. How do you feel about that part of your life in your heart? Like, are you at ease with it? Are you settled, or is there?
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah, man.
Like, any loss that I've incurred in my life, and I think it's because I'm very hard on myself and I'm very competitive. Like, I know that about myself, and I don't know where it comes from, but I'm probably the most competitive guy in the room every time. So when I think back on it, it hurts me. It hurts me, and I always think, how could you have been so stupid? How could you allow it to happen? How did you do this? The same happens in sport. I stupidly signed up for a boxing match a year ago and got knocked out in the first round.
Sorry, you did what?
I did a celebrity boxing match.
Why would you do this?
And I did it because it was for a good cause, of course. But what I didn't realize
What's
is...
the cause? CNEs get knocked out.
And you can imagine, these days I wake up with cold sweats thinking, how could you allow that to happen? You didn't train hard enough, you weren't committed enough. So I'm hard on myself. I'm very hard on myself.
Who was it that knocked you out?
It's another presenter called Ewan Stradom. I see him every day on SABC3 in the morning.
Does he remind you?
He's a big, strong guy. It's not, I remind myself, and then I have these good friends that I work with, the Lunga Shabaladas and the Sivingesis, who remind me every single time we work together.
That you got knocked. Did he really knock you out? Like TKO?
Clean, TKO done. But I've promised, this is how stubborn I am, that now when I have some time and I'm not that busy, I will train and I will train harder and I will go again.
And you will challenge him.
One does not give up.
I like that. Yeah. So you got these two businesses you're running, which for me is interesting, which means what you're effectively doing is you're assuming with 50% of your time you can generate results than many people who dedicate 100% of their time doing the same thing.
Yes.
To do that, you've got to have one or two things. One, you've got to have like a real big belief in yourself. And two, you've got to have like a pit bull-like work ethic. You just do not stop.
Yeah, I've got a great work ethic. I love working. I'm excited. I wake up excited to work. It has its ups and downs. And being an entrepreneur, you know that the highs are very high and the lows can hurt you. There's months where you can't pay your overheads and you think, why am I doing this? And I've got all these people working for me and all these responsibilities. But then when it turns around and you're on the top of the wave and you're surfing that top of the wave, then it's the most exhilarating, beautiful feeling in the world.
Right.
So I think it's those endorphins that drive us. And that's what I like. I like those endorphins of success. It's a great feeling. And when you are low, it's a fight to get yourself out of there. So it's a struggle. So I don't know. I think maybe I'm just crazy, but I think entrepreneurs all are a little bit crazy because you live for those highs, but you're inevitably going to go through the lows.
When you get to the low, how do you tell? What's the conversation you're having with yourself?
I slow things down. I put things in perspective. First of all, I try to solve the problem.
Right.
There's a solution to every problem, Cash flow is a big thing in a business.
100%, yeah.
Cash flow, especially when you're building a small business, you've really got to watch your cash flow. And that's something I've learned over the years. In the beginning, it's easy to throw the money around, but you really got to understand that you've got to pull your business through the hard times as well. So, and then you've got to build yourself up, baby steps, set yourself little goals. Don't put your goal way ahead in the distance, just one step at a time. And stay positive. Don't give up. Stay working. And that's I've realized that by watching a lot of my friends also do things, they often give up just before they turn things around, or they give up just before they reach success. So they've put in all these hours of work. They've really honed their craft, and they're almost there. And then they don't have the belief to carry on. And I think that's where I'm quite stubborn. Yes, we all doubt ourselves sometimes, but it's a mental game. You've got to overcome that doubt. You've got to say, you know what, I'm going to do this. It's like that Nike slogan, just do it.
Do you believe you deserve success?
I hope so, because I work hard enough at it. And I'm always dreaming and thinking and trying to innovate. Like my mind never stops. Once I've perfected something, which you never really perfect, but once I've got to one stage of something, I want to move on to the next thing, and I want to move on to the next thing. So I'm always thinking, I think I deserve it because I've got the mindset. I'm brave enough to do it. Yeah. But I'm not saying I haven't been lucky. I've been very lucky. I was born into a privileged home where I had two great parents that supported me. I learned what it was like to be an entrepreneur. That system got instilled in me, and I had a great support structure. So I was lucky in life. There's a lot of people that come from worse situations that don't have those things in place, and those are the people you almost have to respect more because they did it against the odds.
There's the old Spanish expression, right, which is teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes.
How important for you is it to build the right team?
And
how do you do it?
It's very difficult. It was initially for me. That was one of the challenges, is to find the right team.
Right.
And if you don't have the right team, your business can go down the drain very
100%.
quickly. And you've got to get to a point where you kind of restructure the team very quickly. Otherwise, it's game over for you. So people that know my businesses on both sides have noticed that when we have to cull and we have to cut, you have to do it because you're only as good as your weakest link. But once you found a team that works for you and works with you, and a team that's proud of what you're putting out, that's the ultimate goal.
Have you ever had to fire someone?
Yeah, I have.
And?
I've had to fire people, I've had to retrench people. It's the worst thing in the world because I'm actually quite a sensitive guy, and I take things personally. And especially firing someone when you know that their situation isn't that great, it's the worst thing you can do because you carry it in the back of your mind the whole time. But if you give people enough chances and you're fair to them, and I'd always like to think that I'm quite a fair boss. You give them ample opportunity, you try and correct their ways, but if they then still don't care, and they almost throw it in your face, then you have to cut your losses. You have to cut your losses.
I want you to talk to Janez 10 years ago. So he's sitting across the room, and you're having a conversation with him about this journey he's about to go on called entrepreneurship and business. Mm-hmm. But what you want to do is to take what you've experienced in 10 years and shorten it to 4. What would you tell him?
Don't be scared to take that first step. Don't be scared to take that risk. Right. But make sure that when you take that risk, you've got all your systems in place 100%. And it's a calculated risk.
100%.
So don't become a model agency owner when you've never modeled before. Or a production company owner when you've never mastered the art of production. So hone your craft. Secondly, make sure that what you're going into as an entrepreneur especially, you're very passionate about. Because if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to eat, sleep, and dream it and live it every single day.
100%.
So you have to be 100% passionate about what you're doing. If you don't care about it, then forget about it. And don't give up, because you're going to take the knocks, especially the first year of running a business. It's going to be hard. There's going to be days when you cry and worry about all kinds of stresses, cash flow stresses, sales aren't going well, things aren't picking up. Just keep on pushing, keep on pushing. Don't back down, because the moment you back down, you're giving up, and you've thrown all of that you've been dreaming about and working for, you've thrown all of it down the drain, it's gone. So push it through to the very end. And that should be kind of the strategy to be successful.
In your opinion, what is more important in the formula to succeed as an entrepreneur? Is it being smart, or is it being resilient? And by smart, I mean like book smarts, like...
Yeah, no. It's like, you don't need to be book smart. You don't need to be... If you've got a good idea, if you've got a really good idea and you believe it, and you've done your market research and you believe in that idea and you've asked other people about it and you've got positive feedback, resilience will get you there. The stuff you learned. I always say that because I could have gone. I didn't go to film school. I didn't know anything about it. Everything I learned on set.
On the trade,
I learned on set. The same with a modeling agency. I don't have a finance background. So everything I learned working all those years.
Yeah.
And then, luckily, I also partnered with someone who has the other skill set. So my business partner is more the financial side of things. I'm more the creative side of things. He's more the financial side of things. So make sure that when you do something, you've got that team together. And it's a lot easier to fight with two than it is to fight with one, I would imagine. So my business I've gone into, it's always been with a business partner, with a friend, and that has helped. And I'd say resilience gets you there in the end.
How do you manage partnerships? Those things are very tough.
They're very tough.
Because what happens then is there are two sets of values, two competing interests, two homes, two lifestyles, two egos.
Communication. Communication is key. You can't bottle things up, and you need to, on a daily basis, talk through all the problems. And sometimes you'll want to go in one way and he'll want to go in the other way. And that's when there's arguments and you need to discuss things. But if you're on one island and your business partner is on the other island and you never communicate with each other, your business is destined for disaster. And I think the success of what I've done so far, and they're both still young businesses, is I spend a lot of time with my business partner. We do a lot of the meetings together, and we always make sure that we can kind of align our views and that we're going in the right direction together.
You are a family man.
Yes.
So how do you balance because businesses by their very nature are very jealous creatures.
Yes.
They demand and demand. We just had the conversation right before we started. It seems like it's a perpetual, never-ending, thirsty machine that just wants your time. How do you balance that and the fact that you are a father and a husband and you're raising a family? How do you do that?
That is probably the most difficult challenge of all. It's very challenging. First of all, I had my family living in Cape Town prior to us starting the production company up in Johannesburg. And I made the decision that if we were going to make it work, it has to be where the industry is, which is Johannesburg. So for a year, I moved up here to set up the business while my family was down. And every weekend I would fly back, which was totally exhausting. Then after a year, I brought my family over. But in the entertainment industry and the media industry, it really never sleeps. And when we're shooting, we have days that start at 6 and end at 12. So we've got these very long days. And yes, your family does suffer. But the important thing is that when you do have the family time, you spend quality family time together. You don't just sit in front of the TV and do nothing. So you actually make sure that you do something with your family. But I do struggle with it because, I get the complaints all the time. We don't see enough of you. What I'm trying to do now on an annual basis is make sure that, and we haven't had a family holiday in years, is I'm actually made sure that my sister's family and my mother and father and my family have an awesome family holiday at least once a year. So that's the plan. So I know that I've got something that I'm working towards where I'm going to have 2 or 3 weeks where I'm going to spend everything together, and that will basically make up for all the time that I've spent away.
I understand. So I'm a growth guy.
Yes.
I love growth.
Yes.
Last question. What's your next big growth thing you're doing? You must invariably be working on one thing that you know if we get this right, it's really going to take our business to the next level.
Yeah. See, for my business to go to the next level, I have to kind of diversify my business. So currently, we work a lot with the SABC. We've done work for ETV and we've done work for DSTV. But predominantly, my eggs are mostly in one basket. So we've got some really big format shows that we've pitched for and that we're trying to secure at the moment. And these are absolute game changers. They're international formats. And in my opinion, they're the formats that I've earmarked years ago that still haven't been brought to our shores. So we're currently trying to lock down those formats. And once we have those formats, we'll place them on our different platforms. And hopefully that will see the business grow to even the next level. But there's also the opportunity to get into the other side of the business, which is the content sales business. So I've actually set up a company in the US with, he's one of the biggest content distributors in the world. And we are in the process of trying to distribute content to the African continent.
If I could use an expression to describe you, it'd be the old Wall Street expression, money never sleeps. Janez, it's been an honor to have you here.
Cool.
We really love entrepreneurs like yourselves taking us into their confidence and telling us a bit about what they've been through. And through this process of osmosis, just sharing your ideas and where you are with other entrepreneurs. Because invariably, we grow through watching others do, right? Humbled that you've been here, my friend. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
What a phenomenal session with Janez. What a phenomenal session. I love the process of learning from other entrepreneurs. This idea of assimilation of ideas, osmosis as we call it. I absolutely love it. But here are for me the 3 main key takeouts that came out of that session and conversation with Janez. The first is very important. Take the time to learn your industry. So he spoke about learning first to model, then starting a modeling business, learning first to be in production, then starting a production business. Take the time to learn your business. Take the time to learn your industry. Don't rush. There's no need to rush. You're on a path somewhere and you will get there at your own space and at your own time. You really don't need to rush yourself. Don't let society rush you. The second point he made I thought was very important. This idea that actually you don't have to live beyond your means. I mean, he spoke a lot about taking money he had made and investing it in his businesses, investing it in his properties. He could have taken that money and bought himself a fancy car, a new watch, a couple of suits. In fact, what he did is he put that money away, invested it, and then started businesses with it. This is important. Don't let society's impression of you force upon you to expend yourself beyond what you need to. Live within your means. And the third was this: love what you do. I mean, he spoke about it. Every time he spoke about it, you could almost feel the electricity in the room, right? This idea of loving what you do and doing what you love, being passionate about it. Because if you are, you will never feel like you're working. Not a single day in your work life will feel like you're working. I'm so excited to be partnering with you entrepreneurs on this journey we're on to grow and build businesses. And I think Janez's story and Janez's lessons take us a lot closer to our own paths and to our own dreams and realizing what we are all capable of. I wish you all the very best of luck. But I want to remind you, if you're an entrepreneur, you're looking for funding, incubation or growth, go to mygrowthfund.co.za and that's where you'll find us in the work that we do. Until next time, cheers.